Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Monterey Aquarium live here on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitch. My name is Emily. I am part of the social media team here at the Monterey Aquarium. Good morning, everyone. Welcome. It's been a minute since we did a live. I'm joined this morning by quite a few special friends. I'm gonna mute a couple of them real quick because you could hear a little bit of the echo of my microphone there. But we are gonna introduce some people with me this morning. Right now I'm joined by Golnoosh, you can see next to me here, Helen as well. They are on our social media team. They are gonna be behind the scenes with me this morning, helping with all of the technology to make this stream possible. So thank you so much, Golnoosh and Helen, for helping out this morning. But more importantly, we have two special guests on a different camera that we are going to introduce here in just a second. And of course, some special guests of the non-humanoid kind who are going to be joining us, and I'm sure the reason why you are joining this morning. So we're going to go ahead and pop over, introduce you to the human side of things first. Good morning, Alan.
Good morning, Emily. Good morning, everyone joining us. Thank you so much for being here this morning, this afternoon, this evening, wherever you're joining us from across the country, across the world. We have a very special day for you. But before we get into all of that, we do have a special guest. I am joined by Melanie Otter, and she is our curator of mammals here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. Good morning, Melanie.
Good morning, Alan. Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us today.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do and what your team does here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium?
Yes, well, as you said, I am the curator of mammals here at Monterey Bay Aquarium, and I get to work with a team of mammalogists that care for our resident sea otters here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. We have 5 resident sea otters, Rosa, Kit, Silka, Ruby, and Ivy, and we help with their day-to-day care.
Awesome. And today is a very special day.
It is a very special day. We are celebrating Rosa's 24th birthday, a huge milestone for her and for us at the aquarium. And we're excited you've all joined us. We know her birthday month was August of 1999, and we are celebrating her birthday today.
That's amazing. And 24 years, that's pretty amazing for southern sea otters, isn't it?
It is amazing for southern sea otters. Textbooks will tell you that females live about 15 to 20 years, and Rosa being 24 is a huge milestone for us. A testament to the care she receives here at Monterey Bay Aquarium, advances in our animal science and husbandry, and she is the oldest southern sea otter known to ever have been cared for at a zoo or aquarium.
That's really amazing. And again, like you said, it's really a testament to all the care that we provide for all of our animals here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. So today we are celebrating, if you will, and on exhibit, if you take a peek in there, you'll see we've got a little setup here. Can you tell us what's going on here on exhibit?
Yes, I would love to. So the Sea Otter team has worked really hard to put together some fun birthday enrichment to recognize Rosa's birthday. And in just a moment, Rosa and one of our other otters, Ivy, will get to partake in the enrichment that you are seeing behind me. And what we have is a bed of ice, lots of colorful ice treats. Some of those colored shapes are ice frozen with just a little food coloring, and some of them have food bits in them, which make them really enticing for the sea otters. That entire cake is made out of ice as well. So it's safe and fun for our sea otters. And interesting fact about sea otters, they love ice. They love to chew on it. They love to play with it. They often will bang it on the side of our deck area just like they would a shellfish item if they were trying to open up a shellfish, a mussel or clam, something like that. And so that everything you see on the birthday cake or underneath the birthday cake are otter safe toys and ice and little fish treats.
That's so wonderful, and it looks really great. I can't wait for the girls to come on exhibit here in just a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about why you do some of these things, why you have these ice molds, or why you have ice types of items? How does that work for the otters, and how does that replicate what they might see in the wild or what they might encounter in the wild?
So we provide a lot of enrichment for our otters, and that can come in lots of different forms. It can be training sessions, it can be enrichment like you're seeing behind us. Jess, one of our sea otter mammalogists, is actually adding a little bit more fun, if you will, to our enrichment pile there. And she has actually toys that you all might be familiar with at home that you might use for your dogs at home. And we found that they're really safe and durable for our otters to play with and engage. And we can stick little pieces of fish in there, and what those items do is really replicate a behavior that the sea otters, you might see a sea otter in the wild do if they have foraged and collected some seafood that they want to snack on. They will use their strong little paws and they will bang those shellfish if they're out collecting and predating in the wild. Or here they'll take those toys and do the same type of behavior where they're pounding those toys to get the seafood out that we've tucked inside, and it helps replicate some of those natural behaviors. Because we provide all of their food for them here, it's all restaurant quality food, we then try to come up with ways of making it a little bit more challenging, if you will, for them to get the food out of toys, or even during training sessions that we can engage with the otters and teach them behaviors that help us take better care of them.
And what's one really good reason why we have those enrichments, or why don't we have those shells and shelled types of invertebrates and food items here on exhibit?
Good question. Our sea otters do get those items, but they do get them in pools that are behind the scenes and don't have our beautiful windows that you see on our exhibit. Because of that natural behavior of pounding their shellfish to open the shellfish, they will do that on our windows. And when it's a mussel shell or a clam shell, those shells really would do some damage to our windows.
Absolutely. And
scrape them up. So we try to also make sure not only are our toys otter safe, their exhibit windows safe
Absolutely.
as well. And it looks like they might be getting ready to bring out our otters.
Very cool. So we have Courtney on deck there, and what is she tossing out there? What does that look like?
So those are more treats. we can never have enough treats. It's the sea otter's high metabolism. I wish I had the metabolism of a sea otter. And what Courtney now is spreading around, in addition to all the other ice treats, toys that have food inside of them, they're little ice cubes that are frozen with one of Rosa's favorite food items, which is kwai shrimp, a type of shrimp that we feed here at the aquarium. So we try to utilize some of Rosa's favorite types of food. So shrimp is one of those.
There you go. That's one of mine too. Well, very cool. We'll be looking forward to seeing Ivy and Rosa coming on exhibit in just a little bit. But for all of our folks that are tuning in, this is a Q&A session. We'd love for you to send over any questions that you have. So if you're tuning in on Facebook, Twitch, or YouTube, feel free to throw those into the chat. My team is going to be really great in sending some of those questions to me here on my phone, and we'll be answering those throughout the program here this morning. But getting back into Rosa again, before we get started and seeing here, can you tell us just a little bit about her history and her time at the aquarium?
Sure. We have known Rosa here at the aquarium since 1999, when she was found as an orphan pup. That means for one reason or another she was separated from mom, and she was estimated to be only about 4 weeks old at the time. Pups depend on their sea otter moms for up to 6 to 7 months, and so at 4 weeks old, she was separated from mom. She wouldn't have survived on her own out there in the wild. The ocean can be a little bit of a rough place to make a living, if you will, especially as a young pup. She was so young, she still had her pup coat, which means she can't dive to forage on her own to get fish. So she was brought here to the Monterey Bay Aquarium and taken care of by a rehabilitation program. And they took care of her, and up until she was about 6, 7, 8 months old. And Rosa was actually released out into the bay for a few years but we found out she was interacting with divers, and that wasn't safe for them or Rosa. And because we monitor our otters even after they are released out there to the bay or around the Monterey Bay area, we knew that that wasn't safe for her. She was brought back to the Monterey Bay Aquarium, and we have taken care of her since 2002.
That's amazing. So 2002, that's 21 years that she's been here on exhibit at the aquarium. And if you've ever come in and visited, or if you've ever tuned into our Sea Otter cam, undoubtedly, if you've met Rosa before, she is who we consider our matriarch of the Sea Otter exhibit, and really easy to spot, especially when she's on exhibit. Now, it can be a little bit tricky when Ivy is also on exhibit, and that is one of those things that, you know, viewers and guests always have a little bit tricky time telling the difference between the two. Can you describe what is your easiest way to tell the difference between Ivy and Rosa?
The easiest way, I think, to tell them apart is their fur color. Ivy's just a little bit whiter than Rosa, which is easier to tell when they're right next to each other. Also, their behavior, because Rosa's a little bit older, she is not quite as active as Ivy, and I'm going to let us direct our attention to the cuteness going on behind us.
Yes.
We have Ivy and Rosa, our birthday girl, joining us today here on exhibit at the aquarium. And Rosa is definitely, I would say, into her birthday enrichment. She is exploring, looking for her favorite treats. She's checking out everything, and I suspect she's looking for her favorites, and I do think
she
found one of those shrimp that we were hoping that she would think was pretty tasty as we celebrate her 24th birthday. And you'll see them come and go up into that ice pile and just continue to engage in the fun enrichment our team has put together for the Sea Otters.
That's so wonderful. And again, thank you so much for putting this all together. You know, we, again, do enrichments pretty much every day here at the aquarium, and they take a lot of different forms. So you may not, if you're tuning in later, you may not see something exactly like this, but what are some of the other enrichments that we might provide that may not necessarily have food in them? Like, what are the things that you might put into the exhibit that might be a good enrichment for the otters?
We have a lot of different objects that we use for enrichment for the Sea Otters. Not only those small toys that you see, as you said, that we can put food in, Alan, but also some bigger items, some big buckets, if you will, that we can fill with water and the otters love to climb into. We will sometimes suspend what looks like a little hammock from the rooftop here, and the otters will crawl in what looks like a cradle or a hammock and just hang out, sometimes take a nap. It encourages them to explore different parts of the exhibit. And enrichment comes in all different forms and types, interactions with the staff, training sessions, different toys, sometimes spray hoses, things like that. Here at the Sea Otter exhibit, you'll see a lot of these items that really do look like toys, because that's what they are. The dog toys, as I said, are really safe items for our otters, and we do find if we don't give our otters something to do, they will find their own things to do.
Yes,
such as what we were talking about earlier, scratching the windows or maybe picking at the concrete. I have worked with otters that have even unscrewed bolts and things like that. So we want to provide them safe items for them to interact with. If you go around the aquarium, you might see enrichment in other forms in different exhibits. Sometimes the exhibits themselves provide enrichment, like those nest boxes you see in the penguin exhibit, or maybe the holes in the rockwork that you might see an eel hide out in and rest. So enrichment can come in lots of shapes and forms, and really we utilize it so that we can provide the best care and well-being for our animals, and encourage them to interact with their exhibits in a positive way.
Absolutely. So love talking about the care, because that's something that we do absolutely for all of our animals here, and especially for our sea otters. So can you tell us a little bit about what's a regular day like for your team and in terms of caring for these animals?
We prepare a lot of food for our sea otters. That's the first thing that comes to mind is sea otters have a really high metabolism. They can eat about 20 to 30% of their body weight every day. And our sea otters weigh about 40 to 50 pounds. So that equates to a lot of seafood.
That's a lot.
We cut up a lot of clam, shrimp, some squid. They also get shellfish, like a crab or clam or mussel, as we talked about, not out on exhibit, but in our pools behind the scenes. And then we spend a lot of time engaging with the otters, again, through training sessions, enrichment like you see going on behind us. And really, we want to provide for all of the sea otters' needs, their nutrition, their environment. So our staff also will get in and dive in that habitat so that the windows are clean and we can make sure that the pool they live in is nice and safe for them.
Absolutely.
And so we start the day out by preparing food, and then throughout the day we're feeding that food out to our sea otters, again through training sessions or enrichment. If you tune into our scheduled feeding times, you'll see any one of those things happening, whether we're doing a training session or providing enrichment for our sea otters. And every day it can be a little bit different, whether we're diving, celebrating Rosa's birthday, or have other tasks on our agenda.
Yeah. So speaking of some of the other otters, we only have the 2 on exhibit. We have Ivy and Rosa today, but we do have 5 total here at the aquarium. Can you tell us where are the other otters today?
Sure. I'd love to share a little bit about our other otters too. So yes, Ivy is 11. She is out here with Rosa. And sometimes you'll see 2 otters on exhibit. Sometimes you'll see all 5 otters out here. And when you don't see the otters out here on exhibit, they will be behind the scenes in a different pool that we are caring for them in. We do move them around to these pools behind the scenes for a lot of different reasons. Right now, Kit, our 13-year-old otter, is actually caring for a rehabilitated pup, and she is paired with that pup right now. Silka is in with that Kit and that pup, so she can provide some companionship and a little cohort, if you will, so that pup can grow up around other sea otters. And then we have Ruby, who is also hanging out in one of our back pools, and we move them around to these different pools for many different reasons. They might be part of the surrogate program, we might be doing special training. When Ruby was new here to the aquarium, she just arrived last June from another facility, and we had her in one of our back pools so we could get to know her and get comfortable with her routine here at the aquarium and get to know her a little bit to determine who we would like her to meet first from our group. And we do rotate them regularly. For example, it's good for them to be used to and comfortable being in those other habitats. Should we need to separate an animal for medical care, health reasons, they are comfortable being in all of those pools, and we can provide better care for them behind the scenes. So we rotate them on and off exhibit regularly. So if you don't see one of our otters out here on exhibit, they're hanging out in one of our other pools.
Yeah, we know we get that question quite a bit from especially our online viewers, a lot of folks that are tuning into our Sea Otter cams. Don't worry, the otters are okay. Sometimes they're just taking a break behind the scenes, and sometimes they just get a little break, especially with Rosa. When she gets those breaks, she also gets some treats back there as well. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, of course. As you can see, Rosa loves treats, and when she is in those pools behind the scenes, that's where she can get that shellfish, that crab, the clams. Crab is her favorite, and mussels. We will offer those to her frequently when she is not out here on exhibit, and she really seems to enjoy that. At age 24, I think she does appreciate her downtime. Our other otters can get a little rambunctious, and sometimes we just bring Rosa back to a different pool so she can relax, get all that yummy shellfish, and it's again just keeping her used to being in all of those other pools should we need to move them around for any other reason.
Very cool. Now, when we do happen to have them all on exhibit, I know it doesn't happen very often, but when we do they all seem to get along? Do our otters seem to get along with each other?
That is a good question. Well, it's really natural for otters to not only rest rest together, but also maybe interact and tussle and wrestle a little bit. So we do keep an eye on them when they're all together, that they are getting along. Sometimes two otters don't always want to hang out together. If we're observing that, that's when we would utilize one of our other pools too, so that we can make sure they are in a social group, that they're comfortable and thriving. And although their interactions can seem pretty rambunctious, we are always keeping an eye on it to make sure they're not getting too rambunctious, if you will.
Sure. So I guess that would make it advantageous to be able to move them around into the different areas behind the scenes, on exhibit, and so forth.
Yes, it's hugely advantageous. It helps us take better care of them, that we have those options of other pools to move them to.
Wonderful. So I want to get to some of the questions that you all have been sending in. We've got one on Twitch. We've been talking about how old she is. Is Rosa the oldest sea otter on record?
She is the oldest southern sea otter on record. So there are 3 different subspecies of sea otters, those that live on the coast of Russia, Japan, those along the coast of Alaska, and then those that live along the coast of California are referred to as southern sea otters, and again, a different subspecies. Rosa is the oldest southern sea otter that has been cared for at a zoo or aquarium. We do know there was a northern sea otter that reached the age of 25 years old. So Rosa is setting some records for sure.
And to give folks at home a sense of how old she is and compared to the wild otters out there, what's a normal lifespan for a southern sea otter out in the wild?
A southern sea otter out in the wild, again, textbooks will read males can live to be 10 to 15 years, females 15 to 20. And again, that 20-year mark is the end of that life expectancy in the wild. So Rosa at 24, again, is definitely setting some records and makes me really proud of the care that we provide for her here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And we're always trying to learn how to take better care of our sea otters through our medical program, nutrition program, our training program, making sure that we really are doing everything we can to help them live their best lives.
Absolutely. Now, we touched a little bit about our surrogacy program here at the aquarium, and Rosa has been a big part of that. Can you just talk a little bit about how many otters that she's raised, and is she still a surrogate mom at the Monterey Bay Aquarium?
Yes, for those of you that might not know about our surrogacy program, our sea otters that live here, resident sea otters if you will, the 5 sea otters that live at the Monterey Bay Aquarium are part of our surrogacy program, and what that is one of our females will go and be paired with a pup that's in our rehabilitation program, essentially help raise that pup and teach the pup how to be a sea otter. So they teach it how to forage, groom, socialize with other otters, and the goal is that that pup will grow up and be able to be released, and that's our ultimate goal with our rehabilitation program, is that we can put those animals back out in the wild so that it helps to maintain a healthy population of southern sea otters off the coast of California. So our surrogacy program started in 2002, and it stemmed from animal care staff observing our more mature females would often bond with younger animals, displaying that maternal behavior you would see with otters out in the wild. And we thought, I wonder if we would pair one of our females with a pup, what would happen? And we found out that most of the females would take to that pup, start caring for it pretty immediately as if it was their own pup. And again, they will teach it to groom, share food, that sort of thing. And Rosa, having been here since 2002, was here right at the start of that surrogacy program. And she became a surrogate in 2005, and since then has helped raise 15 pups. So that's pretty remarkable. So Rosa herself is responsible for conservation efforts of sea otters right
out there
here in the Monterey Bay. And at age 24, we thought it was probably time for Rosa to take a break. It's a lot of work to care for a sea otter pup. And it was actually 2018 when she was paired with her last pup. And she did a great job caring for those 15 pups. And now we just get to take care of Rosa and make sure she is living her best life.
Absolutely. So if you're checking out, we had one of our otters. I believe that was that Ivy?
That is Ivy. Yeah.
So she was in the corner and doing exactly what you were describing earlier, where she's trying to get out the meat on the inside, essentially, right? So the food that we've stuffed inside those enrichment items, she has figured out, hey, there's this hard acrylic. Maybe if I bang this item on it, I'll get to the good meat on the inside. So that's what you're seeing, and I'm sure we'll be seeing plenty of that throughout our little enrichment here again this morning. Again, thank you all again for tuning in. We've got lots of great questions coming in on all of our channels. Let's see what else we got here. We've talked about her favorite seafood here. Can you talk a little bit more about your Sea Otter team? How many staff are on your team total, and how many people does it take to really keep up all the maintenance of the exhibit, but everything also behind the scenes as well?
It takes a lot of people. So we spend a lot of time caring for our otters at the aquarium. Our mammalogist team consists of 4 other mammalogists, and then myself as the curator. But it's not just us taking care of the day-to-day needs of the otters. We have a great veterinary team. Our veterinarian is arguably the foremost expert in sea otter care. He's literally written textbooks on sea otter medicine, and we are fortunate to have such a robust and wonderful veterinary team that helps us with any medical needs, any care that the otters might need. And then just looking at their habitat and the water in it, we have teams of life support operators and control operators that make sure the water systems are operating well and the water is nice and clean and healthy for our sea otters. We have scientists that are looking at water quality, so like how salty the water is, making sure the bacteria levels are good. And then I could go on and on. We have a whole team of volunteers that come in, and they get the opportunity to dive in our Sea Otter exhibit, and they help us clean the pools. But we are very well supported by our volunteer community throughout the aquarium. We have volunteers in lots of capacities that help us operate the aquarium. And really, it takes a village to care for the sea otters and all of our animals here at the aquarium. So you might see some faces out on exhibit more frequently taking care of the sea otters directly, but behind the scenes we are supported by lots and lots of people that make sure our sea otters and other animals are really well cared for.
Very cool. Now, I know one of the questions that we get a lot from our viewers, especially since they don't get the opportunity to work with these animals, a lot of people are wondering, how does it feel to touch a sea otter?
That is a good question. They are really soft. Their fur is the densest fur of any mammal. We estimate that it grows at about a density of 1 million hairs per square inch. And if you do an okay sign, that distance between your forefinger and thumb is about the area of a square inch. So 1 million hairs in that little area all over the sea otter's body. So they have the most luxurious coat of any mammal. And they're very soft. I don't know how to better describe them.
Makes
sea
sense.
otters keep warm in that chilly water they live in because of the fur and their high metabolism. They don't have a blubber layer, a layer of fat that seals, sea lions, dolphins do. So they rely on that thick fur, their high metabolism. So they're very fit and muscular underneath that soft coat.
Yeah, so if you look at sea otter females, are about 45 pounds on average. Males can be a little bit larger, about 65 pounds. But again, that's all muscle, and it's all hair as well. So if you've ever been out in the bay, if you've been along the central coast of California, you know how cold that water is. It can get 55 degrees Fahrenheit at the normal, somewhere in the 60 degrees. And so having that nice thick fur and having that high metabolism really helps out. So if you ever want to go out here, make sure you eat a lot. Maybe if you're a little hairy, that might help out too. But for our sea otters, it seems to work out really well, and they can stay out and stay warm in the cold waters here in Monterey Bay. All right, let's see if we get some more questions in here. Do you happen to know the reason why she got the name Rosa?
I do know why she got the name Rosa. Our animals here, our sea otters at the Monterey Bay Aquarium are all named after characters in John Steinbeck's books. So Rosa was a character, I cannot recall the name of the book that her character was in, but that is where she got her name. Kit got her name, and some of the other otters, like Ruby, lived at a different facility, got her name there, but the otters that were reared here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium are named after John Steinbeck characters. So kind of shout out to the area that we live in.
Absolutely. If you're not familiar, John Steinbeck was born and raised here, actually just down the road in Salinas, and a lot of his stories were based here along Cannery Row and here in Monterey. So a shout out to Steinbeck and any literary fans out there. A fun fact, though, that I just came upon was Rosa actually wasn't her first name. Do you know what her first name was?
Her first name was Faye, and that was also another Steinbeck character. At the time, we had another otter named May, and we do, when we work with the otters, use their names so that they can look back at us, know what trainer they're working with. We thought it might be a little confusing for the otters to have a May and a Faye, and so Rosa was renamed Rosa.
There you go.
We think it's a pretty good name for her.
I think so. Yeah. Absolutely appropriate. Thank you so much for that. Let's look at some more questions here.
Oh, we've got some window washing going on behind us, so that goes off every half hour just to prepare folks that might be tuning in.
Yeah, so we have on our windows, just above our windows, we have a pipe that runs along, and that puts out fresh water. And why is that important for our exhibits?
So our guests can see our otters. That fresh water helps to keep our windows clean because of the seafood that might get splattered up on the windows when sea otters are being sea otters, like you saw Ivy banging her toy on the window earlier. So we get little seafood particles. Also the salt water, it helps to rinse that water away too, and just helps to keep our windows a little bit cleaner.
Yeah. And coming back to Rosa a little bit, you know, we've been taking care of her for 21 years. I imagine as she has aged, that care has changed and adjusted. Can you talk a little bit about what's that care like for her now, and how's that a little bit different from, say, some of the younger otters on exhibit?
Well, the training that we do with our otters helps us to take better care of them throughout their lifetime. From a young age, we're teaching otters to climb onto a scale so that we can get accurate weight on them, make sure their nutrition they're receiving is appropriate for that animal. So that training has been a constant throughout her life, and definitely we have changed our routine as is appropriate for Rosa's care. For instance, we talked a little bit earlier about how she was retired from our surrogacy program, and she hasn't been with a pup since 2018. And the reason for that is it's a huge energy expense for our females. It's a lot of work to raise a baby sea otter.
Sure.
And after Rosa raised 15 pups, we thought, you know what, let's give her a little break. Sure. And just like you and, well, I know myself for sure, as I've gotten older, I've gotten a little slower. I might hurt in some places.
Sure.
I didn't hurt before when I was younger. Just being cognizant of her age, and we've don't ask her to do as energetic behaviors anymore during our training session. If she wants to do them on her own, that is wonderful. But we've also known, because of our veterinary care, our sea otters get regular examinations, and we do know that Rosa's eyesight is a little compromised now as she's gotten older. Our veterinary team did identify that she has cataracts, which is very normal in older animals, sea otters in particular. And because of that, we do think she has limited eyesight, and so we've modified her training. Instead of visual cues, for instance, we'll use more audible cues, like calling her name, or maybe we are utilizing a target, which is just a training tool that we might tap so she can follow the direction of that sound. If we want her to move around or would like her to come up on that scale, she will hear that tap and then follow that that training tool up onto the scale. So definitely we cater how we care for our animals to what's appropriate for the animal. And like we were talking about Rosa being retired from being a surrogate and being able to be cared for by our team and provide all of her nutrition care, animal health care, and all the things that she needs throughout her life.
Absolutely, and again, it really applies to all of our animals here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. And another example that comes to mind is Ray in our penguin exhibit. Ray was one that actually hatched here at the aquarium years ago, and we found out very early on that she also had cataracts. And so we went through the process of getting the procedure that she needed, and she was successful in that, but she still has those kind of vision issues. And so very similarly, we have adjusted our training with her to focus more on those auditory kind of cues and calls. And so they'll call out to Ray, she recognizes her name, and then they work with her in that. And so again, it really a testament to our care here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium. These are our animals, these are in our care. We want to make sure that they have the healthiest, longest lives possible. And we're going to do everything that we can to provide that for them. So big thanks again, over and over for all the work that you and your team does for the sea otters here. And we're going to get into another question. I just saw one pop up here. Where did that go into? I think it disappeared. Okay, we're going to get back into something else. Tell us. Getting into in the surrogacy program, you know, the big goal of that is to release those otters back out into the wild so that they can help support the wild population of southern sea otters. Do we still keep track of the pups of the otters at the aquarium, and do we know how they're doing? What does that look like?
We do. We try to monitor and track our sea otters that are released here from the aquarium throughout their lives if we can. And so when sea otters are released, our research and conservation teams will go out, and for that first 2 weeks they are tracked every day to make sure they're not only surviving but thriving out there in the wild. And if the otters aren't thriving, we will bring them back to the aquarium, help stabilize them, and maybe try that release again. And then beyond that, once we have a successful release, or release we think is successful, they're doing well at the end of that 2-week period, we can continue to track the otters. For those of you that might have been able to see otters off of our coastline here in Monterey Bay, you maybe see otters with flipper tags, and that's how we identify our otters that have been released. They don't bother the otters. It helps us identify them and make sure we can continue to track and observe the otters. And they also are equipped with a little transmitter too that our veterinarian utilizes with our sea otters, so we can get radio signals of our sea otters and can continue to track them as long as that transmitter and those flipper tags are associated with that individual. So we very much try to track and monitor sea otters that are released here from the aquarium throughout their lives if we can.
Sure.
And hopefully make sure we know that they're doing well once they're released.
Very cool. Sorry, just pausing for a minute to acknowledge the bright orb that's in the sky right now. We've got the sun coming out. I apologize if I'm squinting a little bit. We're not used to this in the morning here in Monterey Bay. It is August, so we usually get that nice marine layer. So we're adjusting a little bit here. Apologies for that. Coming back into our questions, we've got one here from Twitch. This is a good one.
Okay.
I hope you can help us out with this.
I hope so too.
Someone wants to know, how would you say or spell the sound that sea otters make?
Oh, I've got this.
Oh, you got it?
Uh-huh.
Oh, it's going to be good.
It's meh. M-E-H-H-H-H. Meh.
That's okay.
Yeah.
There you go. There you have it. Thanks for the question. We appreciate it. Do you know, can you maybe guess why they make that sound or what that sound means?
That is a good question. Sea otters actually make a lot of different sounds. The pups will vocalize. It actually sounds like a screaming child sometimes. Pups will vocalize that so that their moms can find them. If mom's out foraging for food, pup is on the surface of the water, they'll vocalize so mom can relocate that pup. They will make cooing noises to each each other, that we think it's more of a hey friend kind of noise. The sound I just spelled for you, I would equate to a way of getting attention or just an alarm call in certain instances. They will make lots of like moaning noises. They make a lot of different sounds, and so we can't ask them what they mean by that. So we simply try to interpret the scenario that it's happening in and do our best to speak Sea Otter, if you will.
There you go. I like that. That's a new one. I'll have to learn the translations there. Thank you for the question on Twitch. We've got another one from Twitch. Do the otters have different personalities?
Yes, they very much have different personalities. Earlier, right as the enrichment was starting, you asked how we tell the otters apart. They all behave in different ways. They all like different toys. As we were talking about, Rosa's, one of her preferred items is that shrimp that she very easily located in that pile of ice. She's definitely targeting the shrimp today. She loves crabs. So they have different food preferences, if you will, and also different personalities in the way of how they interact with each other, different preferences of where they even spend time on the exhibit. Ruby, for instance, if she's out here on exhibit, she might be hanging out of the water a little bit more. She just likes to hang out on deck. Some of the other otters are more active in diving, that sort of thing. So their behavior, their food preferences, who they interact with, we'll see certain otters be more affiliative or hang out with certain other otters more often. And that very much, not only can we tell them apart from their individual characteristics like food color. Food color. Fur color, sorry about that. Fur color, we can tell by their behavior and their personalities in that way. And just sometimes where they're hanging out can help tell us who each individual is.
Now, you're touching a little bit about kind of food preferences and things like that, and that's something you actually find in wild otters out there in Monterey Bay or along the Central Coast. And so, again, sea otters are really invertebrate specialists. They love anything without a backbone, and oftentimes a lot of those animals are protecting themselves with hard shells and things like that. So clams, mussels, crabs, sea urchins, and different things like that. But what's really interesting is that an individual otter may have a very specialized kind of favorite food item or menu, if you will, out of that big range of items out there. So really interesting for those otters. And do you ever find that our otters ever change their preferences of food, or do they kind of stick to what they like?
They can change. Rosa, she's gotten older. One thing we've changed about her care, which we've talked about earlier, is actually offering her the items that she prefers to eat. What's interesting about Rosa is some days it's clam, other days it's shrimp, and so we want her to get the nutrition she needs, and we will bring out whatever Rosa wants to eat for that day. So it does change from time to time. Overall, if I have found with the otters I've had the privilege to care for, there are certain items they just do not prefer and don't like, and there's definitely items that they tend to always prefer for that individual.
Sure. A question that we've got on YouTube talking about the food: are otters quick enough to catch and eat rockfish, or do they only stick to the invertebrates?
They are quick enough to catch them. Whether they eat them or just play with them, that is another question. And so as the southern sea otters you see off California coastline are those invertebrate specialists. The sea otters that live along the coast of Alaska, they're the ones that more often will be observed eating fish as well as invertebrates. So yes, they can catch them. I don't know if they're eating them or just playing with them, because they are, as you can see, very playful and mischievous little animals, or not so little as the case may be.
Sure. So we've talked a lot about, we have the otters that are on our exhibit, they're all females, but the wild otters that come in obviously can be either sex. What do we do with the male sea otters that come in? Would they ever come on exhibit, or are those really we're really focused on getting those back out to the wild?
Our main focus, as we talked about earlier, would be to rehabilitate and release those otters if we can. There are animals that are determined to be non-releasable for a variety of reasons, whether it be health or after they are released, we just determine they are not surviving and thriving. And that can be for a gamut of reasons as well. If a sea otter is determined to be non-releasable, or in our case, we don't have a female pup to raise that pup, a female to raise a pup as a surrogate, we'll determine those animals to be non-releasable. And there is a sea otter community at zoos and aquariums that really work together to provide homes and housing for those animals that are non-releasable. At the aquarium, we have a group of females so that they can participate in that surrogacy program, but there are facilities around the United States and even Europe that will house and care for animals that are male, female, other females. So we really have a lot of partners in the sea otter husbandry community that we can talk to and make sure otters are living where it's best suited for them as well.
Absolutely, and even beyond that, we've actually are expanding our partnership with a few of the aquariums out there. So our surrogacy program is something that started here, really grew here at the aquarium, but we recognize that we can't do it all. And especially when it comes to the pups and taking care of them, it's a huge investment, not only for the otters, but for the staff and all of the resources that are involved. And so we've been able to work with a couple of other groups. AOP down in Long Beach's Aquarium in the Pacific is going to be one that's working on facilities right now to help support our surrogacy program, so that hopefully down in the future, down the line, they can have sea otter pups that have been rescued, orphan pups that are rescued, can be brought into their facilities, and their otters can help bring them up to speed, help rehabilitate them, get them what they need to be successful out in the wild. And so we're really working on that partnership right now, and hopefully that will continue to expand into the future. As we get into a couple other questions here, we've got one here on Twitch. Who is our youngest otter? They're asking because the last time they were here, Rosa was 12.
Oh my goodness. Well, I would invite you to come on back come and see our other otters and our wonderful exhibits around the aquarium. Our youngest otter currently is Ruby. She is 7, and she just arrived back here at Monterey Bay Aquarium last June of 2022. And our hope is that she'll become part of the surrogate program and be able to be paired with a pup and help raise them. She has shown that maternal instinct with other animals, and we're hoping that will translate to a pup. So when the opportunity arises, we hope that she'll be part of our surrogacy program. And she is 7. I don't remember if I said that. Ruby is 7, and she is our youngest.
Yeah, so definitely, again, for all of our viewers out there, stay tuned with our Sea Otter Cam. You can definitely check in. Again, we swap out these animals on a regular basis, irregular basis, just depending on the needs that we have behind the scenes, in front of the scenes, and so forth. So you might be able to check out Ruby here in the next few weeks. Who knows? As we kind of wrap up here, again, thank you everyone that's been tuning in across all of our channels and giving us all of your questions. We've got a couple more questions here. This is a good one. I'm asking this personally, actually. How can I get a job like yours, Melanie?
You can volunteer and scrub buckets and be a really good squeegeer, and that's one of the first steps to getting your foot in the door, so to speak. The working with animals is a very rewarding career for sure, and it starts with doing volunteering, maybe interning. I would say it's a combination of your education, whether it be a science background. With our sea otters, we do a lot of training that can be a little bit of psychology background. So education is very important.
Sure.
And then locally, if you're interested in an animal care career, finding out what your opportunities are wherever you have the ability to go, whether it be volunteering at an animal shelter or a zoo or aquarium, interning perhaps, or looking for those entry-level positions to get that hands-on experience. So
Absolutely.
It's kind of a combination, and then doing some research to see what your opportunities are locally. I started as a volunteer intern, and I've been in this field for about 26 years now, helping to care for animals, and it really is a rewarding career.
Awesome. Yeah. So I know for me, coming in a science background and being able to work at the aquarium, it's all about the opportunities. You know, put yourself out there. You know, there's probably gonna be a lot of volunteer, intern types of opportunities that may not be paid, but it's really about the experience and getting your name out there, making those connections, and all those things. So if you want to be like Melanie, start working on those. Just to wrap up here, we've got a question here on Facebook. This is, I think, really good. I think for all of our viewers out there, what are some actions that we can take to help sea otters out there in the wild? What's something that we can do?
That is a great question. I think no matter where you live, whether it's on the coast of California or if you're watching from the middle of the country or even outside of the States, your personal actions make a huge difference. And we've maybe all heard some of the things, but not using single-use plastics, not using straws, reducing your carbon footprint if you can not drive your car somewhere and bike. It really is all of us taking those little steps. And if you do have the privilege to be out in wildlife and nature, I really encourage people to keep their distance from the animals. If you think your presence is impacting the behavior of that animal, it is. And that's animals' home. So while we all want to enjoy nature and be out in it, and I encourage you to do so, I would encourage you also to do that as a distance, whether you're kayaking and there might be an otter in the bay or wherever your adventures might take you. Just be really cognizant of keeping your distance from the animals, because that is their home.
Thank you. Well, perfect. So thank you so much, Melanie, for joining us here today and answering all of our questions. Again, thank you to all of our viewers out there for sending all those questions in. We're going to get a little bit of a shower from the window showers here. Let that die down a little bit. But thank you all so much for joining us here. Thank you, Melanie, again. Thank you and your team for all that you do for our sea otters here on exhibit, and by extension, all those otters out there in the wild, because it's all connected. And the work that we're doing here is having that really direct effect on our wild population. So thank you all. I'm going to pass it over to our friend Emily. But thank you so much for joining us, friends.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, thank you again to Alan and Melanie. Everybody, please throw big thanks to both of them in the chat for us. GGs, all the W's, all the hip lingo that kids are saying. I'm cool with the hello, fellow squids out there. It's been a minute since we've done a live stream. But also, I want to give a huge thanks to both Helen, who's right behind me. You can't see Golnoosh right now, but they're on the camera. And if we duck out of the way, you can also see Rachel there in the background. She's been... Secrets out, she's been there the whole time, who has been diligently getting those questions that you've been putting in the chat and sending them over to Alan. Without this team, this stream wouldn't have been possible. So thank you to everyone for helping us out. And of course, thank all of you for joining us today, for supporting the aquarium, for supporting our sea otters, and celebrating the wonderful Rosa with us. We have Rosa celebrations going on all week long. Go and head over to our social media channels and celebrate along with us. There's going to be more happening today and tomorrow, and it's just Rosa as far as the eye can see this week. So thank you again. We appreciate you all so much, and we will see you again here at the Monterey Bay Aquarium very soon. Thanks, everyone.